World's biggest tourism fair, ITB Berlin comes to India, powering the first edition of BITB New Delhi. Hear them speak their minds. Meet them, do business, interact and network.
Aviation and are not familiar with CAPA. We are a consulting firm. We work, we have a worldwide coverage, work in almost every part of the globe. We have a global presence with offices in 6 countries. Aviation and are not familiar with CAPA. We are a consulting firm. We work, we have a worldwide coverage, work in almost every part of the globe. We have a global presence with offices in 6 countries. We set up the India practice in 13 years ago. We're the largest consultancy and advisory firm in this region. Almost 125 consulting projects in this region, and we have done almost every part of the value chain, both in air on ground, from airspace to airports, to logistics, to freight, to ground handling, both on the research side as well as the consulting side. You will see the 5-year CAGR for domestic from 06 to 11 at about 15.7% and the international at about 11.1%. You go to the next 5-year CAGR of 11 to 16, the domestic passengers are about 9.9% growth, international passengers about 7.6. You look at a 10-year CAGR, we get 12.7% for domestic and 9.4% for international. On both the slides, on the left hand and right hand side of this slide, this is basically how the domestic passenger traffic has moved from 2005 to 2015, and this is how the international traffic has moved from 06 to FY16. Almost a double-digit growth both for domestic and international, but rather a sustained period for about 12 years. Lastly, I think, which is something that we will discuss with the CEOs of airports, which is something that I see a very big structural challenge, is investment in airport and airspace capacity. If you have to move from this 84 to about 233 and 55 to 118, and the growth could be much higher if fuel prices stay at the current levels, which is what it's likely to be, our entire airport infrastructure at non-metros are going to saturate in 3 to 5 years. So virtually entire airport authority infrastructure at airports is going to saturate. Most of our gateways, Delhi, if it grows at 20, it may cross 100 million and reach saturation level. If you look at Bombay, it's already closed. Chennai is not going to move beyond 18 million. Bangalore and Hyderabad in the next 10 years are going to saturate. Calcutta is going to saturate. So whole metro infrastructure may take 5 to 10 years. The non-metro will saturate in 3 to 5 years. But more for tourism perspective, people who are not in aviation don't have the understanding or at least the information on critical issues. This slide actually tells you that what is our order book in terms of aircraft. We have 430 aircraft in service right now, 783 on order, 783 on order. By the end of this fiscal, we will see 250 to 300 aircraft order in the pipeline. SpiceJet likely for about 100, firm in about 50 options, and a Vistara is roughly looking at a 50 narrow-bodied and a 50 wide-bodied aircraft, which could happen in the next 6 months. So if I include both of them, it's over 1,000 to 1,100 aircraft. It's a very strong possibility of another large startup happening in about 2 to 3 months. We have a session which starts with a hard talk with the chairman of Air India. Welcome, sir. Please come on the dais, and ladies and gentlemen, give him a very warm round of applause, please. So we're going to start by just hearing from you. Your entry was very divine. You came with lower fuel prices, and things have changed dramatically over the last 2 years. Can you give us an overview of your experience in the last, before we go to some other questions? What's your experience, what's your experience been for the last 12 months, plus that you have been in India, and as Air India chairman, and then I will go through some questions here.
Good morning, everyone. Kapil wants to know my experience of the last 1 year. It's been a roller coaster ride. Before I joined this organization, I could not actually imagine that a post like this can exist. And because prior to that, I had been heading tourism corporations, ITDC, MP Tourism, and also major postings in railways, which also is in the same industry, transportation industry, and tourism is also service sector like an airline. But yes, this has been totally different. I can call it's a bit tough assignment. A lot of challenges were there before us. They're still there very much before us, and they'll remain for some time, that I'm sure of. But we have moved. The fact is that Air India has moved forward, and both in the domestic space as well as the international space, and we have tried to improve our services. But still a very, very long way yet to go. On the 1st of December this year, we'll be introducing the 4th direct international flight between India and rest of the world. The first we introduced on the 2nd of December last year, and on the 365th day, this will be the 4th flight, and this I feel is quite a major thing for an airline.
So basically, what, sir, would be your opinion? How do you increase the yield? I mean, is it the distribution has to become stronger with the strong base you have of the distribution agents you've got, or your internal distribution? How would you look at this going forward? I mean, what is your vision on that?
See, 2/3 of my revenue come from international operations. 1/3 come from domestic. That is why looking at all this expansion internationally, we'll have to improve our services. Services inside the aircraft and outside the aircraft, both above the wing, below the wing, as they say. And we have to improve our brand value. That will help us in improving the yield and doing the yield management in a more efficient manner that we are already doing, my team is already doing. But we'll have to improve our services to a large extent and improve the brand. We have to go back to the old brand which Air India was. Because see, if you, I basically spend a lot of time in the hospitality industry. You take a meal in a 5-star, you'll pay 5,000 rupees or 10,000 rupees for that. You take a meal in a dhaba, you'll pay 50 rupees for that. Food is the same. It's just the brand value of eating in Taj or eating in Moria, which you are able to pay a much higher amount. That also happens in every other sector, every other service sector. It will happen. So we are very much focused on improving the brand value.
Thank you very much. Excellent session. Thank you for coming. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, welcome. We have an airport session, and we'll start with Mr. Nair first.
Going by our experience of transforming Delhi and Hyderabad airport, I would say that, what has been envisaged in the NCP, the civil aviation policy, we should, the men who are supposed to be, driving should be taking up those issues very, very seriously, drawing up an action plan, time-bound action plan, and implementing it. More importantly, very vigorously following it up and monitoring it.
Tell me about Cochin. What are we going to see in the next 2-3 years?
See, since 99 when we were operated, we started with 0.5, 500,000 passenger, and last year, 2016 financial year, it has been close 7.7 million passenger traffic. And last 2-3 years, the growth is almost as well as the domestic sector.
I don't know how many of you are aware, Mr. Agarwal is the promoter for Durgapur Airport. It's an experience, in fact, while Cochin is one experience, Durgapur is another experience. I would like you to share the setup experience of Durgapur. Even the experience that you had in terms of setting it up, it was different and very challenging. At an operating level, there is a challenge. Would you want to take that and see opportunities across India again?
Yes, of course. We are already working on that. That is under process, some very significant initiatives of that kind. And I would say this, that the potential is great, the regulatory framework is there, the stakeholders are very keen that it should happen. When I say that, I have in mind 4 different stakeholders quickly. So that is the state government, the central government, the local business community, and the traveler at large. I mean, all of them are very keen that airport infrastructure should come up in a number of locations. So there is no dearth of support or momentum. But I would say that it is upon the business community, those who are in the sector, to actually step up and accept that challenge and use that opportunity to build a business. So I think that there the focus should be turned inwards. See, we are always in the business community looking at what the government can do, what it is doing wrong and so on. I think that there is a need here to step back and see what can we do.
I invite now Shyam and Pankaj on the stage. We have 2 Air India brothers here. Pankaj, for you primarily, just give us an overview of what the CMD said in terms of international expansion. If you have to look at next 2 years.
Taking further from where Mr. Lohani left on the international expansion, I see that Air India is now poised to grow substantially on the international side. We have added as many as 9 international sectors in the last couple of years. And as Mr. Lohani mentioned, the next one is coming on the 1st of December. So that is immediate now.
With Shyam, first of all, thank you for making it, both of you. Just first give me an overview of what's happened in last 2 years. Why are we seeing profitability enhancement? Why are we seeing volume stability? Why are we seeing a turnaround in Air India Express, which is significant?
Well, I think you mentioned some of the most important things. One is that fuel has been very cut. Can you hear me now? Okay. Yeah. The critical things have been the cost of fuel. That is an external factor. But internally, there's been a tremendous improvement in terms of aircraft utilization, in terms of occupancy factors within the aircraft. We have done some route rationalizations, knocking off dead domestic sectors behind an international sector. All of it has paid rich dividend. And just to go forward, some of the points that you had mentioned, Kapil, specifically the ability to sustain growth because of the resource constraints that seems to be like a writing on the wall. If you're talking about 700 aeroplanes, you're talking about 4,000 captains. Those are things that really daunt me. No, not just for myself, for the whole industry. It does look like a big ask, looking at producing 4,000 captains from nowhere. It's not just in India, you may not find them globally.
Thank you very much to all the speakers, audience.
World's biggest tourism fair, ITB Berlin comes to India, powering the first edition of BITB New Delhi. Hear them speak their minds. Meet them, do business, interact and network.